Okay, welcome back. We're on page 19 in the book talking about the guided tour of what all these things are. Well, the next one on the list is etc. And the etc directory is where configuration files are. Later on when we install, like for example, an email client, or email server rather, we're going to go to etc and we're going to make some changes. Home, that's where our home directories are. Lib is where libraries are. So library is like a dynamic link library. You know how in the Windows world, you might have an exe file and a bunch of DLLs. Well, these were the DLL equivalents. Live. There's one called media. Typically, media is typically just a mount point. Okay, there's usually nothing in media, but it's just a convenient location so that when you pop in a CD-ROM, you can mount it to something. You don't have to stop and create a folder for your media because they've already built one for you. It doesn't have anything in it yet, but when you pop in a CD-ROM, you can say mount the CD-ROM. By the way, to mount the CD-ROM, I would say /dev/CD-ROM using the dev folder, right? And then mount it to the media folder. So if you guys want to go back and look at how we did that, when we first mounted the VirtualBox guest editions, that's what we were doing. Cool. Temp. Temp shows up as a mount point. You can see how it's got that green background. So temp basically is a scratch pad where things happen on the machine, but when you shut the machine down and bring it back up, you're not preserving the contents of temp. So temp is a special type of file system that's designed not necessarily to be persistent. And then user. User is where, so they kind of make a distinction between here's our system, or our Linux commands, and then user is where if you want to put a command in for something that you write, or when you download a new command, like the tree command, I don't want to mess up my Linux distro by putting it up in the bin. So I'm going to put it in user bin. Oh, by the way, let me just do an ls on user. After I get focus on the correct box. Okay, so there's a user bin and a user lib and all these other things. So, kind of sort of mirrors what we got here. You know, a bin and a lib and sbin is for those things that requires super user powers, you know, root powers. Okay, that's kind of how that's done. Okay, so a symbolic link. So see the light blue? We have a handful of symbolic links. We have an initrd.img, and those are in light blue. What a symbolic link means, that file actually exists someplace else. And if you do the L option, you can see where it actually lives. So it doesn't actually live here in the root. It really lives in boot, and then this god-awful long name. You know, initRD.image-4.15.0- so that's way too long, isn't it? So the symbolic link allows me to shorten up the name and have it appear wherever I want. So a symbolic link basically means this thing is symbolic link is more like a Windows shortcut. The file really isn't there on your desktop, right? You know, the shortcut just points to wherever the heck the file really lives. That's what a symbolic link is. Cool bean. So later on, we're going to be actually doing some of this, but not right now. So in the symbolic link world, there's one real location, and then there could be a fake location, right? Cool. You could have, I guess, multiple symbolic links all pointing to the same thing, but that would be kind of weird. All right, there is such a thing as called a hard link. And a hard link means I want this thing to appear in the directory structure and not just have it so this symbolic link points over here. I really want it, the real honest-to-God file, to appear in two locations. Now, this is something we rarely ever do in the Windows world. But in the Linux world, it's not that bad. I have something buried someplace, and I want it to appear in two different locations. I want it to appear in this folder and in that folder both. And when you do that, this link count is going to change from a 1 to a 2. So in this particular case, there is no distinction between the real file and the link file. Okay? In a hard link, they're both real. Okay? Now, here's an oddity. Let's say I have a file in 2 locations, and then I delete one of them. Does the other one go away? No. But the link count goes from a 2 to a 1. Okay, so the machine knows that this thing has been linked. So if I delete one of them, all it does is just unlink it. Okay, kind of cool. Hey, what do you think happens when you try to delete a file whose link count has already at 1? It actually gets deleted, right? So if you had a link count of 3 and you deleted it, it'll go to 2, nothing happens. Delete the next link, goes to 1, nothing happens, really. You delete the third one, where the link count is 1, link count goes to 0, and that guy is really, honest to God, really, really deleted this time. So when the link count goes to 0, you are done. Okay. So, manipulating files and directories, which is chapter 4. There's an awful lot of stuff here. So, for example, in the GUI, it's actually, talk about Windows GUI, it's actually kind of hard. If I told you, copy all of the files that are newer or don't exist from folder A to folder B using the GUI, that'd be a little hard to do, wouldn't it? But from the command line, that's a trivial task. So it's actually pretty easy to do. So to understand this, we really need to be talking about wildcards. So when I process a command and I type in something, like let's go back to my home directory. Remember the file command? What if I just did asterisk? It's going to see both the kumquat and the temp directory. I didn't do the -a option, so right, it's just going to show me the things that are visible. So asterisk means all. Show me everything, all the files in there. Okay, so there's a cool little guy in here. Okay, so asterisk means match any, all, and none. Any, all, and none. A question mark means match any single character. If you put things in square brackets, it means match a range. For example, I wanted everything that starts with either an A through M. I would do A-M inside the little square brackets, and that'll give me anything that starts with an A through an M. And then, of course, you can say not. So anything that's not an A or a B or a C. And then these classes match any alpha, any numeric, any digit, any lowercase, any uppercase kind of thing. Okay. I hate it when it does that. Okay, cool. So this is kind of sort of important, and you really, really, really need to be able to understand how this thing works. So let's just try a few. So I'm going to go to CD, I'm going to go to root. All right, cool. So if I just said CD, ls minus AL D, what does D stand for? D stands for directory. Normally when you did an ls, it would expand the directory and try to do everything. D basically says, no, don't bother descending the tree. Just do. So ls minus ALD. So all it did was just show me the current one. So what if I did minus ALD and then S asterisk? It's going to show me everything in here that starts with the letter S. Let's go take a peek. Well, there they are. SBin, snaps, SRV, swap, and SYS. Kind of cool. All right, so starts with an S. What about ends with an N? Okay. ls minus AL D asterisk N. So if I put the asterisk at the end, it means everything starts with an S and then anything after that, right? But if I put it the other way around, which means now instead of starts with an S, this means ends with an N. So what do we got? So I have bin, run, and SBin. Cool? Making sense? So where you put the asterisk matters. Cool beans? Okay. So here's another one. Let's do ALS minus ALD. And then I want S, but I only want B and N. Okay, B and N asterisk. All right, hang on. That means the first letter must be an S. The second letter could be a B or an N. And then after that, I don't care what the letters are. Okay, you following me? So first letter must be an S. The second letter could be a B or an N. And then, cool? All right, let's go one more. Let's do LS minus ALD. And then I'll do S. And anything that starts with an S but does not contain a Y. Okay? Asterisk. Okay, is that kind of sort of making sense? So these are skills that you absolutely, positively are going to have to learn. You're going to have to learn how these things happen. Now, let me say something out loud, and then I'm going to explain what I mean by it. There's a phrase that says the wildcards are expanded by the shell. Okay, what that really, really, really means is the machine, the ls command, never sees that asterisk. The ls command does not see the asterisk up here. It does not see the asterisk in or the S with the square brackets. The ls command never sees this thing happen. Okay? Because the shell is going to expand those things and then hand them to the ls command. So the ls command doesn't need to know how to expand any file names. There's a cool way you can kind of like do a test run. If I said echo ls minus ALD, let's do S asterisk. See, the echo command basically tells me, it's like a preview of what's going to happen. So here's what the ls command actually sees. It sees sbin snap. How did it do that? Well, because the shell is the one that's responsible for expanding that S asterisk. The ls command doesn't know anything at all about expanding wildcards because the shell does it for it. Okay? Good. Okay. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to make a directory. I need to go to my home directory before I can do that. So make dir. Okay? That's one of the few that's not 2 letters long. I know, it's kind of weird. 2 or 3 letters. Make dir. I guess it's because it's important. So I'm going to call this one, so I want to do make dir, I don't know, test. Okay? So where did that get created? Well, it got created in whatever folder I was in at the time. Okay? If I said make dir /home/Emmett test, that would have been the same thing, right? But since I'm already at the home directory, I don't have to do that. Makes sense? Okay? Just a little bit of review here. Okay. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to do some copying. We're going to copy a file. Well, the only file we got is this one called kumquat, if you recall. Right? The only file I got. Well, that's not true. I got profile. We'll mess with profile. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to copy .profile to test. Okay. So basically what this means, CP is the copy command, and it's going to be copying from, the file. And instead of giving it a file name, I'm giving it a folder name. So what that means is copy the file without changing its name, copy the file to that folder. Okay, here we go. Now to make sure it worked, I'm going to have to do an ls minus AL on test and see if it's there. Yay, it's there. Okay, coming up on the 15-minute mark, you know the drill.